Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more Legacy action. Today we are doing a midweek meta deck slot and we are playing Isolated Systems Legacy Challenge winning Death and Taxes deck. Before we get into this, let's just have a quick check and see how the metagame is doing. So we have 4 weeks of data from challenge level events online, and this is what the current meta looks like. A lot of people playing Is It Delver, but it's not really overperforming, it's just performing pretty much even, which is a good sign. Omitel, on the other hand, is doing incredibly well. It's had 17 top 8s with only 4.7% of the meta, so it's definitely one of the decks to beat right now. Reanimator is still doing totally fine, but let's go down to Death and Taxes because that's what we're playing today. It's pretty much within the Goldilocks zone of like sort of 0.8 to 1.2 on the overrep, so it's doing okay, and it has won an event, and now we're going to be showing you that deck. So, one of the reasons I want to play this one is because it's showcasing a brand new card in Meteor Sword. So this is a 7 mana equipment. When it enters, destroy target permanent, and it equips for 3 and it gives a creature +3/+3. The reason we play this obviously is we get Stoneforge Mystic and we put the Meteor Sword into play for just 2 mana to blow something up, and then we can flicker it with Flickerwisp, and then later on we can use our Yorion in the sideboard to flicker it as well. The rest of this deck is, you know, pretty much a standard Death and Taxes list. We've got a bunch of fair creatures that we can leverage over time to build lots and lots of advantage and just have inevitability if the game goes that long. This list does have a one-off Thalia that we can actually tutor for using our Recruiter. We've got Stoneforge Mystic with a package including Pre-War Formalwear as a ×2, which is interesting. This card is just good on its own anyway. We've got a Lion Sash for Graveyard Hate. We've already mentioned the Meteor Sword. But what's really interesting here to me is there is no copies of Cauldron Complete. We're just trying to Meteor Sword and blow stuff up, and that's kind of our big late game engine thing instead. We don't really need the super aggro, I guess, but we'll see how that pans out. Phelia does do a pretty good job of doing aggro stuff. This is going to blink a bunch of our creatures and grow itself whilst getting us incredible value. So we've got the disruptive elements you would expect in Swords to Plowshares and Thoughtseize. We also have the Solitude for more removal, which is obviously great with all our blink effects. We've got Orcish Bowmasters, I have 2 of here, and Skyclave Apparition. So we've got lots of ways of interacting with various things in play, including our Wastelands and Karakas as well. Karakas can also be used to bounce our own guys, so we can save our Thalias or Phelias. Overall, the Balemurk is kind of the big engine that this deck uses a lot now. This is the aggro plan. Instead of running Cauldron, you have Phelia plus Overlord, and you just get to bash with the big guy. That's kind of replacing that slot. So I'm interested in not having Cauldron here and seeing how it pans out. You kind of know everything in this deck and seen it before. It's a pretty well-worn deck in Legacy. It's been around for a very long time. It constantly changes. Like, we're only on 1 Thalia now. But the general core game plan of building up advantage in the sort of mid to late game and just getting in at your opponent with various bits that you can is still what the deck is about. Sideboard, let's go over this. We've got a little bit more removal and a path. We've got a Containment Priest that we can tutor for using our Recruit of the Guard. This is going to help versus things like Sneak and Show. We've got Wrath of the Skies if we need to blow up a lot of like little artifacts and annoying bits and pieces. Deafening Silence for some of the combo matchups. A little bit of Graveyard Hate and Fairy Macabre, which is tutorable by the Recruiter. A couple of Gadok Teagues, which explains the singleton Savannah that we have in the deck. But mostly we're putting this in off of our Aether Vial, I would imagine. But this is just going to try and shut down some of these big mana decks, running like Kozilek's Commands and One Rings and stuff. Another piece of Graveyard Hate in the Grafdigger's Cage, and then a couple of Disruptor Flutes. It's just a generic piece that you see in a lot of decks that don't necessarily have counter magic or anything. You see them reaching for Disruptor Flutes because it's quite versatile. And that is what we're playing today. Congratulations to Isolated System for winning a Legacy Challenge with this. Let's see if we can do them justice. I'm not exactly a Death and Taxes player, and it's not a particularly easy deck to play, but we're going to try and do our best and showcase what this deck can do, and I'm excited to really ruin people's day with Meteor Sword. Let's get stuck in. For free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products, and full sets, check out 3for1 Trading. Whether it's the Legacy or Pre-Modern that I play on this channel, or even Vintage and Old School, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COW3 for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. I don't think our opener is a keeper, so I'm going to shove it back in. This looks a little bit better. We've got some stuff to be getting on with. What are we going to put back here? Try and put back a land. It's the thing we're most likely to draw. We do have other plays that we can play around it. Getting it wastelanded, that's kind of annoying. Kind of a tough call. I think I'm going to put back a Karakas. It's a card that if we draw another one becomes dead. Of all of our lands, it's the one that's least likely to be useful, I think. Now, sometimes we might want to bounce something, but the things we're mostly worried about, like giant creatures coming into play that can be Karakas, tend to be the Omitel decks, which just win the turn they play their big guy anyway, so it doesn't matter. And bouncing an Emrakul that's being cast doesn't really help us out very much. Eldrazi Temple. I'm pretty happy to have a Swords to Plowshares in hand. Recruiter of the Guard. Am I just playing out my guy here? I think so. First Strike, not the most useful against their 3 toughness bodies, but this will stop them having any Lotus Petal type stuff, and it makes Kozilek's Command worse. It's not going to be huge in this matchup. I would very much like to draw a land, so maybe I'm regretting putting that one back now. I thought not, sir. They're probably going to take the Swords to Plowshares, because if we Skyclave Apparition this and they kill our Apparition, they still get a 4/4 back. Whereas if we just plow it, then that's pretty good for us. We could have held up the plow instead of playing the Thalia, but then if we get wastelanded, then we're not on board at all, and it goes a bit wrong for us. They did take those swords as expected, and we drew the land. Okay, that works out for me. So now we get a card off the Thought-Knot, and it's another plow, which is obviously great. Amazing with the Thalia, and we are going to be boarding out the Thalia in this matchup. But we do need to pressure our opponent, because if we just give them enough time and then eventually get to their sort of end game, just all these big haymakers and tutoring for more haymakers. There is a Flesh Raker. Kozilek's Command isn't the easiest thing to cast, but Ivugin is a pretty messed up mana source. Right, we're losing our black source. That does make it harder for us to cast these 3-drops, obviously. But if that's what they're doing for their turn, I can live with that. Scrubland. I don't even know if I'm interested in playing that just yet. I think we're just going to plow the guy they have and crack in for 4. I'm going to hold this land so that they can't wasteland it, so we can still have access to a 3-drop next turn. If we lose on our creature, that comes out of Pre-War Formalwear. Otherwise, we can just get the Recruiter in and get a Solitude. Look at this wasteland we've played around perfectly. You'd love to see it. Okay, so they are spending some resources on getting rid of our Thalia. They're also drawing a card here, so they're unlikely to put anything else into play. Clearly, this Thalia was doing something to mess them up. The fact they went for this, I guess they didn't have enough mana to go for the other one, but they could have held this and tried something else, but maybe their hand is just a little bit weak. Do I want to get this Phelia in? I think Phelia is quite a potent one. I think I'm going to hold this and play the Phelia. It allows us to mess with combat because blockers they think are going to be blocking won't be blocking. And then we can play the Recruiter and immediately flicker it if they tap out this wasteland. And just get a lot of value that way. We can flicker out the Skyclave, but that does come at a cost of giving our opponent a 4/4, which I'm not really a big fan of right now. So you could be seeing something like a Line Breaker here, but they might try and play something else since we're showing white, so it could be like a Swords to Plowshares or something. Right, I'll tap in the Wastelands. That's good for our next turn. Talisman of Creativity. Why are they running the Talisman of Creativity? It gives them red mana for Line Breaker, but what's the blue mana for? Just the Wastegate Battle Mage? Chalice the Void equals 1. We can flicker that out if we want to. Our opponent's just not really putting stuff together here. Scrubland, so we can just go get our little friend in. We can just go and tutor for probably just Solitude here for the first one. Chat with everything. Phelia, blink this. Phelia comes back. Sorry, the Recruiter comes back from the Phelia. I think we just get the Stoneforge Mystic. Now the downside here is if our opponent does play some big creature we have to remove, that's a lot of life when we're only attacking for little bits, but Phelia does ramp up. But the big things they can have can be the Devourer, which is going to blow up our Phelia. There it is. So we're going to lose the Phelia, and now if we want to blow this up, it's going to cost us a bit more. Because 10 life is kind of big when we've been chipping in for little bits. That's so many more turns our opponent's going to get. Is there another way around this one? Okay, then we get Stoneforge in. I think it's time for Meteor Sword. And then I think we evoke the Stoneforge. This way, if our Stoneforge dies, we get the Pre-War Formalwear to bring it back anyway. We could even just attack then and just use the Pre-War Formalwear to get back what we wanted. But we don't push much. We just put like 1 damage through and then we give them a 4/4, which I'm not a fan of. We're going to leave this around to play around Wasteland, as we did before. But if we can just get this Meteor Sword up and running, I think our opponent's going to have a horrible time. We've still got a Yorion to reach for, which is not bad with our board of being able to blink stuff. Basic, not unhappy to see you. Smash in. And then we can just put in a Meteor Sword whenever we want and blow up a permanent. Alright, they've had enough, and we managed to take that game down. Cool. What do we want to do with our sideboard here? We would like the removal spell. That seems like a pretty obvious one. The rest of it, not really doing much. Like, what is Deafening Silence doing for us? Very little. Like, it can stop some of their really bonkers Kozilek's commands with Glowing Flesh Raker turns, so I don't think I'm too bothered by that. The Containment Priest, they don't do anything that really matters about that. We can blink out their guys, so they never come back again with Thalia. So maybe this is okay, but it's pretty much in the okay pile, not in the we want to play it. Wrath of Skies does blow up Chalice, but I don't really think we care that much about Chalice. We can Thalia or Flickerwisp blink it out anyway. It's got a decent number of answers there. Meteor Sword can blow it up if needs be. I'm not sure we want this. Again, this goes in the maybe pile, but it's very hard to kill any of their guys with it, so I really don't like it. Gadok Teague. This shuts down Kozilek's Command. These decks don't run the One Ring. This will also shut down any Chalice of the Voids they draw, and if they're running Eldrazi Confluence, it can mess with that as well. So this has some text. So again, this is in the maybe pile. Let's have a look at what's bad in our deck first. Lion Sash is not doing anything, so we can get rid of that. It is just a guy that can sometimes grow, so maybe it's, again, it's in the, it could be useful pile. Orcish Bowmasters not great here. Thalia also not great here. Like, Gadok Teague's doing a similar thing. Let's get rid of this Thalia. I don't hate the Thoughtseizes. I think they're quite useful early doors just to stop the worst excesses of what our opponent can manage. But at present, we've basically just taken out Thalia and put in a Path to Exile. Are we going to have enough time to leverage this to be big enough? Because they do have some pretty big boys. Maybe we don't need this, and a Gadok Teague is better. Gadok Teague doesn't shut down anything of ours, does it? Let's just check. Nope, it only shuts down the Meteor Sword, which we're never casting anyway. So if I would like to get another Gadok Teague, we're going to need to cut one more card. We could just trim a Thoughtseize and get this Teague in. We could trim another Thoughtseize since we're on the draw and put in this Containment Priest, which seems fine but not great. But I'll take fine. Like a Flash Blocker could maybe mess up if they attack with a Glaring Fleshraker. We might be able to snipe it out, although if we have 2 white mana up, it's pretty obvious what we're trying to do. This hand looks fine. We're not going to get jammed up by a Challenge to the Void. We can't specifically mulligan to stuff because we're playing a Yorion deck, so we've just got some spells at play here. We can use Phelia plus Bowmasters to keep growing our Orc army until it can beat any of their guys. A Wasteland. Okay, you got it. Do I want to trade my Karakas for their Wasteland here? How do I feel about that? We've got other lands. Yeah, I'm going to make this trade. And basically, this is like wastelanding our opponent's Wasteland. The downside here is if they play a guy and then also wasteland us. If they're playing a guy, it's unlikely to be a good guy. Yeah, they didn't fall for our bait. Here is the Fleshraker. Not an easy one for us to kill. Shadowy Backstreets. That's not really the one here, is it? I think because of Kozilek's Command, I'm going to play out this Gadok Teague. So we get our 1 Savannah, play a little Teague. I will trade with Fleshraker if they give us the option as well. But I think stopping them from being able to Kozilek's Command is kind of a big deal. Because that's where Fleshraker just kills us this turn in some instances. Like if they played like a Eye of Ugin, then all of a sudden every Kozilek's Command is effectively replacing itself with the tokens because you get the -2 off of the... Alright, so they're wastelanding our thing. That's fine. I would have rather they did that on turn 1. Why would they offer this trade? If they're offering this trade, then that means they are happy to take this trade. So I'm not going to take it. Play this so we can pivot into what we want to play here. Let's get some damages in. If their only removal is Kozilek's Command, we could just slam Stoneforge and just try and shut the door. I don't hate that for us. Let's go and get... I think it's just a Scrubland here and we're just in on non-basics at this point. Let's go and get this Meteor Sword. We could just go and get the Pre-War Formalwear. But if they'd have had a Thought Not So, they would have played it last turn, right? So I'm going to get this Meteor Sword. And now we can start blowing up their creatures and then maybe blow up their lands. Phelia plus Meteor Sword is going to be pretty gross. So they've got red mana now, so this unlocks things like Wastegate Battle Mage and the Linebreaker. You can attack again. It feels like their hand is very Kozilek's Command heavy. Certainly the impression they're giving me. I will attack with my little Gadok Teague friend. I don't mind taking 2 here. I think we've got the game relatively controlled. So taking 2 here and then giving ourselves the out of having both of these for whatever comes next makes a lot of sense to me. I don't even think we Meteor Sword here. I think we Phelia. And then we can have a really gross turn now. Or you put in the Meteor Sword. Blow this guy up. Get attacks. Alright, looks like our opponent might have had enough. Yeah, so what we're going to do here is we're going to be able to Meteor Sword twice. So we've already blown up one thing, and then we're going to blow up one of their lands and take them off of a colored banner source. And then every turn they're going to be losing a permanent. And then we've also got a grip full of removal they don't know about. Alright, that was very decisive. Let's go to match number 2. Again, we've got another hand here that looks fine. Not exciting, but that's okay. We're playing Death and Taxes. I'm not sure how many hands we have that do look super exciting. We're just sort of playing very fair trading magic where we trade a bunch of stuff off, but then we just kind of push out afterwards. Thalia, Skyclave. So this is where things get tricky. We can play this Bowmasters now to play around brainstormy type stuff here, but it does expose us to days. I think I'm actually okay with that. Get a white source here. Use the black source here. If they just untap and Bowmasters are Bowmasters, that's obviously not great for us. I'm hoping for either a Force of Will on this or our opponent to just let it through. Either of those outcomes is fine. Unless they just immediately remove it. But we still end up with a little bit of something left over. I'd much rather play it proactively instead of trying to play chicken with a Brainstorm on our opponent's end, because then we don't get to deploy stuff and they're probably better at playing at 1 mana than we are. So if we're holding this up the whole time, we're not really expanding our board whilst they're generating clues. The big pause here makes me think our opponent has something. Right, it took a long time to think about this one, but eventually they dazed. This sets them back a turn at least, so the cracking of the clues is something we have to worry about for a little while. Undercity Sewers. So this gives us a window to try and kill this using the Skyclave Apparition. We should be able to outvalue our opponent's deck, but in order to do that, we need to make sure there's no Tamiyo in play. Because outvaluing a Tamiyo is a very difficult proposition. Do you have a second Daze here? We don't really have a choice to play around Daze. We need to just keep jamming our stuff. I don't think playing one of our 2 drops works. Alright, we've got a 2/4 with our Skyclave, which is pretty much what it's there to do. So what is our next port of call? We can block the Tamiyo with a Flickerwisp, which also takes out one of their clues if they don't have the mana up to crack it, which isn't the worst. So Brainstorm here, we can obviously flicker it back into a Planeswalker. Into a creature from a Planeswalker if we're worried about that. But if they just pass with the mana up for the clue, the Flickerwisp line doesn't seem great. Okay, they're cracking a clue. I'm going to play this untapped. I'm going to cast a Flickerwisp, get rid of this clue forever. And now I'm going to play this Aether Vial. Then we can work towards doing stuff in our hand. We've got a Yorion to reach for as well. Attacking with the Tamiyo doesn't make sense unless they have ways of drawing more cards, like a Brainstorm. Or if they have a Ponder and a land here, that works. They can Ponder, play the land, attack, get the clue, crack the clue in combat before it takes damage. And then it flips. Alright, they just have a Brainstorm. I see. Or not, I guess. Strange play. This might mean they've got another Tamiyo and they're okay just trading it in, cycling out the way, but this puts us in the driver's seat a little bit, although this number of cards in our opponent's hand being 7 is a little bit scary. We can start whittling through our opponent's mana sources soon. We also don't know what deck our opponent is playing. Yep, so there's the second Tamiyo, which we kind of guessed from how that last turn played out. So our opponent could be playing like a tempo deck, or they could be playing Reanimate, or they could even be playing another combo deck. Okay, let's put this Yorion into our hand. I don't know if I want to attack here. I don't think I do. I think the plan here is Phelia, untap, and then get the White Orchid Phantom going. Because if we've got this in play, our opponent has to spend resources on it if they want to attack with the Tamiyo and have it live. Unless, obviously, they have a Ponder, and they can Ponder first and do the thing we mentioned last turn. There is an argument to not put in the Phelia here. Alright, here comes the Brainstorm, I assume. Street Wraith. Okay, so it is Doomsday. And it's good information to have. Did they play a land yet? They did not, I don't believe. So the reason we're not going to play this out in response to Brainstorm is if our opponent plays land and Fatal Push or something, I would like it to hit this rather than the Thalia. We also don't know if our opponent wants a free shuffle from our White Orchid Phantom or not. So this could mess up what they're doing, or it could help them shuffle. Alright, they have a shuffle effect anyway. Okay. We're going to see a Dark Ritual here. Just a Ponder. So now I think we can jam the Thalia. Just means if they want to interact with this, it's going to take cards out of their hand now rather than whatever they find off of the Ponder, and also means they can't find an answer. So obviously going to take this up to 2. I'd like to find something exciting here. Thoughtseize is definitely in the realm of exciting. They shuffled off that Ponder as well. What you got over here? Doomsday, Lion's Eye Diamond, Murktide Regent. Don't really want this Murktide Regent to come into play here. Although the Lion's Eye Diamond gives them lines where they might be able to win. Although if the top card of their library is a counter effect, they do just win anyway. I think I'm getting rid of... What do they have in the graveyard here they can get back? Forces and Brainstorms. Okay, so they can minus the Tamiyo, get back a Brainstorm, and then they can have Doomsday Brainstorm, which probably wins them the game anyway. So if we put the damage on the Tamiyo, it can't get back the Brainstorm. And then we take the Murktide, and that stops them having a bunch of turns in time. This could be a sketchy one. Put this White Orchid Phantom. This will blow up their Undercity Sewers. We have to attack the Tamiyo here. I'll blink out the White Orchid Phantom. We're not going to kill the Tamiyo, we're going to stop it from being able to bring back the Brainstorm. And then our creature comes back, and I believe we take our opponent off of black, unless they use the Lion's Eye Diamond, which obviously doesn't work to cast spells in your hand. And then next turn we can do the same again. Blow up one of their lands. We can probably use the Yorion instead, and that gives us more pressure. We use the Yorion to blink the White Orchid Phantom and the Flickerwisp. And then we get multiple hits of our land destruction on them. Thassa's Oracle. Just the fair Oracle. Never a position you want to be in. So we have enough damage in the sky to kill this. I'm not wholly convinced by the tempo Doomsday with Wasteland in. Now this can take out our Wasteland so we don't get to Yorion, which is not nothing. I think 3 is the best number for this to be on most of the time. Our opponent has 1 mystery card in hand. Overlord of the Balemurk. That's clearly a bit of a banger here, isn't it? So let's cast this with Impending. There's a lot of cool stuff we can get here. Recruiter of the Guard. Skyclave Apparition. We can play Skyclave and just take out the Tamiyo and just go straight to their face. We get this Orcish Bowmasters, which is probably the best thing to get. That makes our opponent's life way more difficult. And we go to attacks here. So this comes at Tamiyo, this comes at Tamiyo, this comes at them. We will blink our Overlord. And Orcish Bowmasters, you say. That's going to ping down our Flickerwisp. So he's only going to put 1 damage on the Tamiyo. We can see how they block, and then we can mess with them using the Bowmasters if they try and kill our Phelia here. We're just going for a little chump here. We can kill this if we want to with the Bowmasters. I think it's probably best just to get some material out of play. We get Overlord back. What do we have here? Solitude. Recruiter of the Guard is pretty good, isn't it? What are we going to recruit for? More Bowmasters? Because we can use the vial to put it in. And this can basically be anything we want it to be, because we can flash it in and go get Solitude if that's going to be a thing that can win us the game if our opponent's pile is not empty, for example. Brainstorm. This is going to hurt our opponent because we have the Bowmasters. The thing I'm most worried about is our opponent killing us this turn, so we're going to point these at their face so that if they make a Doomsday pile, it's going to be harder for them to rip through it, and just assume that we're going to be able to get there with our next turn. I think it would be a mistake to not go to the face here. Like, we can take some of their material out of play, which sounds good, but the issue with doing that is our opponent needs to win this game, because we are winning the fair game in a massive way, and we're just playing against the unfair game. That's what this ping to the face is doing. This puts our opponent to 11, which means if they Doomsday, they go to 5. So if they rip through their pile this turn, they die to Bowmasters. They are going for the Doomsday. But if they do a non-empty pile, we can go and get Solitude. So we've kind of got some options here. Surprisingly, the Thassa's Oracle from their graveyard is going into the pile. Alright, they've finished making the pile. Let's have a little look what they've got. Okay, Murktide, Tamiyos, and then regular Doomsday stuff. We're not, strictly speaking, dead here. Our opponent does have to navigate a lot. They spent a while on their pile, so it's entirely possible they can get us here. It's hard not to back the deck that has just a bunch, that just gets the tutor for 5 cards on its deck, right? That feels like it should be able to navigate it. They have to work out what we're doing with this Recruiter of the Guard, but we only have 1 mana available, so pretty much the only thing we can get is the Solitude. They could pass the turn once, but then there's a lot of damage coming towards them at that point. We can go and get second Bowmasters. Cycling a Street Wraith. This is a bold maneuver when we have a Bowmasters in play. Our opponent says they're playing slow because people keep knocking on the door. So this is going to give us a Bowmaster trigger, which is obviously going to go to their face. Maybe they're relying on us solituding their guy. They might have it here. I'm not sure how the backside of Tamiyo works for Devotion. I know what its mana value is, but does it actually have a blue pip on it is the question. We can put this on the stack, and then we're going to use these files' ability, put in this Recruit of the Guard. I think it has to be the Solitude. I don't think there's anything else that plays here. We Solitude the Oracle, and we get the win that way. Okay, I was so worried we were dead then. We obviously put our opponent into a horrible spot, and they were probably like, oh, we're so dead, I need our opponent to make a mistake. And we're just like, oh no, how are we ever going to beat Doomsday after it's Doomsdayed? But we got there. So Disruptor Fleets on Doomsday doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world, does it? I think there is some argument for something like a Deafening Silence. It can stop some of their more egregious draws and just turns off Dark Ritual, which is one of the things that can really get in underneath us. So I'm okay with these 5 cards, potentially. This isn't a Lion Sash matchup. Like, this can curtail their graveyard for Tamiyo and Murktide Regent purposes. So it's not entirely useless, but I don't think it's really where I want to be tutoring for. The Bowmaster is obviously great. Thalia, great here. Skyclave, not at its best. So we can probably trim a couple of those. We keep one in to tutor for. Like, they hit Tamiyo, so it's probably worth having a couple in. Solitude was pretty clutch there. Do we want another Pre-War Formalwear? Probably trim A swords to Plowshares. Possibly two. We get something that looks like this. And then if we want to add in the extra Deafening Silence, we maybe need to trim a Pre-War Formalwear. And that gets us the other Deafening Silence. I imagine this matchup has got to be pretty horrible for us. Gaddock Tea doesn't do the most because it's just going to stop the Force of Wills, but it's not going to stop Doomsday because that's 3 mana, and that's kind of what we care about. This hand is not the most useful. We don't have any lands. Let's mulligan. Thoughtseize is very much one of the cards I would like to see in the matchup. I'm pretty happy with everything. I think we're just going to put back the Skyclave with the plan being Thoughtseize into Overlord into Flickerwisp our Overlord. That seems like a good way to play the game to me. Ponder is nice. Hopefully they shuffle this so they're not hiding anything on top. They did not shuffle. I could just waste down and restart this game. Do I want to do that? I think it's more important to Thoughtseize because our opponent might be able to win without this land. So this is just a basic, because we know they have waste downs. That could just be really irritating if they just pop that off at a moment we're not ready for it. So we're going to Thoughtseize them here. Strip away, hopefully something useful. Oh, they have a waste down that we played around nicely. This is kind of awkward. I could take the days, and that maybe messes with what they have. Because they would need another blue card for this force. I'm going to try that. I'm glad we didn't waste down them. It wouldn't really make much difference here. There's a Tamiyo. So we know Force of Will is not live. I do think it's more important to get this Overlord out rather than trying to get the Stoneforge going. I could be wrong on that one. I don't have enough reps on this to know, but this deals more damage in a quicker pace. We're not trying to grind all our opponent's permanents away. Now they could Street Wraith here into a blue card. I believe they know the top card of their library. So they might be doing crack this, Surveil land, Street Wraith, try and counterspell this. Yeah, looks like that's what's happening, but that's going to be a 2-for-1 off for us, which is where we want to be, I think. The fewer cards our opponent has, the less we have to be worried about their brainstorms and such. Oh, they found a brainstorm, so they're going to exile our Overlord. Alright, so our opponent's just left with 2 lands in hand now. Going to immediately top deck the Doomsday. You just crack in clues. That means you don't get the Flickerwisp value, taking out one of their clues. Do we Flickerwisp here? Do we just go and get the Stoneforge? We got Surveil land, but that gets hit by a Wasteland. We could Wasteland them off of triple black. Yeah, I like Wastelanding them off of triple black here. Let's get Stoneforge in. The Meteor Sword, I think. And let's take them off of one of their black sources. So they can't just top deck a Doomsday and immediately fire it, which gives us a bit more time. We might be able to strip away all their mana sources. So we can Meteor Sword, take out the Tamiyo or the land, and then the next turn we can Flickerwisp it. But the longer we leave this Tamiyo around, the scarier that can be for us. So we have no more information of what's in their hand. Oh, I wish I had one more mana here. What is more important to me, this Thalia is really good against our opponent's deck. It makes all their cantrips and stuff worse, but I'm kind of worried about this. If they crack this fetch land, if we have one more mana, we could play the Thalia first. We have another option available to us. We attack with Stoneforge and we blink the Stoneforge. I don't think that's a very useful play, but it is one that we could do, and it puts a 3-1 body in front of the Tamiyo. I think we have to get rid of this Tamiyo, or at least make an attempt to. I hate playing around Tamiyo. It's such a horrible play pattern. We got a Brainstorm over there. See, if this just transformed instead of flipping, instead of exiling and then putting into play, it'd be so much better as a design. Consign to memory on the trigger. Okay. Just the fact that it exiles it, so the removal doesn't work. If you just had something that destroys... So Prismatic Ending would work on this if it just transformed. There's no reason why it has to exile, to be honest. I just think that's a very, very terrible piece of design in a set that I consider to be one of the worst design sets of all time in Modern Horizons 3. Anyway, I digress. There's a lot of Wasteland action over there. I don't think we're going to use this to get Surveil land. Let's try and Flickerwisp. We crack this and they daze again, maybe? I assume they have another daze here. Problem is, we're just getting beaten by Tamiyo on its own. This 1-mana card is basically beating our entire deck at this point, and it's very frustrating. These Wastelands are going to be very good at paying for stuff around Thalia, but if they burn them on our stuff right now, I don't know why they would do that. They can just be cracking clues. They left the Wasteland up instead of the coloured source. That's wild to me. Maybe what are they worried about that we have in green? Right, so now they're flipping the Tamiyo. If we draw a land, we can equip the Stoneforge, attack, and then the Tamiyo, and then play the Thalia. We'll probably play the Thalia first. So if they're going to remove something, it's going to cost them more. Oh look, it's another Tamiyo. Okay, so we can't get the Thalia in, but we can equip here. Do we equip here and attack? Because our opponent gets back a card next turn with this. But they can also just do that anyway. Oh, we're in so much trouble here, team. I think we need to flash in the Phelia. This also represents Orcish Bowmasters, which maybe means our opponent doesn't go for it this turn. Because if they're on 12 life, we ping them for 1 in response. They go to 11, then they go to 5 when their Doomsday resolves. So if they draw all 5 cards, they die. So we can at least represent that. Let's really try and sell it here. Just make them think. We've got more time on our clock than they have, so we can do a little bit of mind gamesing. Right, they're just going upstairs with the... presumably attacking, getting a nice little clue to enjoy. Lovely, lovely stuff. This does at least mean the Stoneforge might be able to attack. Let's get a failure in. What are we drawing and what difference does it make is the question. So if we're blinking the Meteor Sword, that could be frustrating if they have a concise memory they've already shown us. If we blink the Tamiyo, that seems like our best bet. So we could equip here, but then what are we doing with the rest of our mana? We could Recruiter for a Bowmasters and just have that as a threat. Interesting. I think I'm going to play this Thalia. Thalia and Phelia. I will try and blink out this Tamiyo. If it doesn't work, we're still going to put 1 point of damage on it from the Phelia. And that's worth it to me, I think. Because they can consign this trigger. Bowmasters. They're going to ping down our Thalia. That's obviously really good. And they can also double block and kill our Phelia. So if they kill our Thalia and then consign to memory the Phelia trigger, then we can probably stop trying to get confused between Phelia and Thalia because we'll be dead very soon after that, I would imagine. Because if we blink the Meteor Sword and they can sign it on the way back down, we lose the Meteor Sword forever. Okay, we just blinked that guy out. That's fine. So we're going to lose Phelia here. And we're going to take out probably the Orc Army, I would imagine. That is actually a scarier prospect for us. Although we can potentially blink this out. But this can be a 2-2. We don't really care about the body here. So now they get back the Tamiyos. They lose one of their Tamiyos. So we did achieve one of the things we wanted to do. But this entire game has just been us trying to not lose this Tamiyo whilst our opponent's just constantly getting more and more cards to it. And it's so frustrating. So the way they could have printed this was so that it flips with a certain number of counters on it, right? But they figured, oh no, if we just exile and put it in, then the Planeswalker number that it has on the bottom is going to make enough sense. And that's just not very helpful in terms of the design space. Okay, so we're getting Doomsday this turn as well. Oh no, it's a Barrogoyf. Interesting. How big is this? 5/6. It's quite large, isn't it? So we do have a Yorion we can reach for. Let's go for a Recruiter first, though. Can we get Phelia and try and do more blink shenanigans? I think the Stoneforge Mystic is going under the bus. They can also use a Barrogoyf to go through their entire Doomsday pile in one turn. They can just connect with it and shred us. But we get Phelia, we blink the Meteor Sword, which I guess has to hit Tamiyo or Barrogoyf. Yikes. There's too many problems, and it all sort of snowballs up from the Tamiyo in the first place, which has drawn them so many extra cards. Just taken so many of our resources to try and challenge this Tamiyo, and we just can't deal with it. Under the bus you go, Stoneforge, because the Recruiter is something better to flicker than a Stoneforge at this point in the game. We don't have a Cauldra. Cauldra would have actually been pretty good in this sort of matchup, because it can just keep attacking through and they can't really interact with it in any meaningful way, because removal doesn't work on it because it's indestructible and they don't have white removal. It's certainly a matchup where I would have preferred to have access to a Cauldra than not. Consign to memory. Okay, that's obviously good. Our opponent's only got 4 minutes left on the clock though, so if we lose this one, they have to win very quickly, which is obviously a thing their deck can do. We Brazen Borrowing, my poor little Phelia. We are indeed. And another Phelia. Am I attacking here? I don't think it's worth it. We can hold back the Tamiyo, but that's not the most useful thing in the world. King doesn't really work very well through the Barrogoyf. We can flash in a Phelia and double block and kill the Barrogoyf. That obviously goes drastically wrong if our opponent interacts with us. But maybe they won't. I think this is an okay block to be doing. Opponent doesn't seem super high on removal. They're back up to 21. We've got his Tamiyo ticking away. Okay, we can finally put something useful down, maybe. They're going to consign this trigger, I suspect. Here it comes. But then our Phelia won't be consigned in theory. And they're going to put in the Borrower, and we're getting to the stage where we need to actually interact with their creatures. They're going to be two-turning us. So maybe our Phelia Meteor Sword has to blow up their guys, which is obviously horrible. We've got our Phelia in. Not the most useful Marsh Flats ever. So this has to attack. Let's attack both at the Tario. We blink out the Meteor Sword. We get to put Yorion into hand. So if we survive this turn, we can blink the Meteor Sword again. But another consigned memory kills us here. They can consign now, they can consign on the way back in. I think it's better to consign the exile trigger most of the time, because if we are sandbagging a Thoughtseize for the consign, then they can get blown out a little bit. Let's put this Yorion into our hand. I want to keep this Marsh Flats in hand. Make our opponent consider the fact that we might have a Solitude. I think we have to blow up the Down to Voidwalker. That's the hardest one for us to answer, I think. Just to consign a Bowmasters. So this is 1 damage, 2 damage, 3 damage, and then we're dead. Okay, our opponent's got 2 minutes and 55 seconds to win the last game, which doesn't seem the easiest. Maybe we'll just put in some more plows and just get rid of some of our late game stuff, because we're not going to need that in this game right now. We just don't want to lose to like a really early Baraglyph. Could even play this other path, but maybe that's okay as well. Let's get rid of some of the mid-rangey stuff. Just keep the cheap interactive stuff so that we don't get killed in the first couple of turns of the game. That's all we need to do. A big shout out to whoever was knocking on our opponent's door and ringing their doorbell when they're playing this game. Really helped us out. Deafening Silence. That does stop us getting Dark Ritualed out super early doors. So let's take that one and roll with it. Big fan of the Thoughtseize here. Let's go and get a basic swamp for this. Thoughtseize around a daze here. Right, we got a Force of Will out of our opponent. So they might be forced to go for like a quick Doomsday here, and then we can play Disruptor Flute on Thassa's Oracle and ruin their entire day. They could hard cast a Doomsday right now. Blue. It's just a Baraglyph. I say just. It's a pretty good card. Which Enchanter? Not the one we require at this moment in time. If we get a Surveil Land off of this, we're not playing the White Orchid Phantom. How useful is the White Orchid Phantom is the next question. It blocks, but I don't want to send a guy into the abyss. Not really. Okay, I think this is a Disruptor Flute plus Surveil Lantern. And they're going to get hit in with Baraglyph. But we can see what they get, and then we can work out if we want to name it with Disruptor Flute as well. No creatures. Something. I don't need to Disruptor Flute here. Not in their main phase, sorry, but we can do it in the end step. I don't know even if they have Doomsdays. They must have Doomsdays in there. Shadowy Backstreet. Orcish Bowmasters is pretty good at keeping us alive, which is the aim of the game right now. Let's blow up one of their lands. The Long Goodbye. That can't be countered. But this also means that our Orcish Bowmaster can't be countered, because they've already played their one non-creature spell. So we can flip in this Orcish Bowmasters and get a nice block off without having to worry about this being dazed. We just need to tread water for a few turns. You know, we could also just draw one of our removal spells. We've got a few in there. Blue and blue, Thassa's Oracle. It beats down, but you do have to spend a couple of seconds resolving its ability. In comes the big boy. Under the bus we go. Play another guy that can go under the bus. I think that's better than putting Yorion into hand. Also, we have a Surveil Land this turn cycle coming. Okay, we'll block here and here. The Thassa's Oracle in play shows us they do have Doomsday in their deck. Merc's Hide Regent. Are we going to lose this game? Could be. We get Stoneforge, we block. Next turn we Meteor. Alternatively, we get the thing that brings back the Pre-War Formalwear, and we get back the Orcish Bowmasters, but that doesn't beat this Merc's Hide Regent. We could get back the White Orchid Phantom, which blocks here, but then we're just treading water again. I think we need to do better than that. So I'm going to get a Meteor Sword. I'll put Yorion into hand. And then we're going to chuck a guy under the bus. And maybe next turn we can draw a Solitude and stabilize. Opponent's doing a good job of using their clock at this low stage of the game. Consider. Would have liked to have had an Orcish Bowmasters in play for that, but here we are. Let's just send everything in. Block here. If we block here and they have Orcish Bowmasters, we lose our Stoneforge and we lose the game. I think we just take the 9. Another Karakas. Well, that sucks. So we can Meteor Sword, So block and Meteor Sword is what we have to do this next turn. Okay. It's the line we have. We lose 2 consigned to memory here. You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. If this works and we can then play our Yorion, we actually win this game, I think. Okay. This all work out reasonably fine. Thoughtseize on my Yorion. That's so backbreaking. Yikes. We need removal spell. We just drawn a plains. GG opponent, you get us. Ugh. Now, the Doomsday matchup should be pretty horrible for us. But not because of them just playing little guys out, it's because of the Doomsday that it should be bad for us. Yikes. Alright, on to round number 3. This hand is a little bit slow. I think we need to mull into something that does something in the first couple of turns at some point. Like this hand, for example. We can keep this one. We can probably bin off the Meteor Sword. Although we could do some really cool stuff where we play Stoneforge and they don't expect the Meteor Sword. Alright, I'm going to put back a Thalia. The surprise Meteor Sword is the deadliest, as we all know. We are a little bit susceptible to getting wastelanded ourselves. Ancient Tomb. This looks like a chalice. That doesn't impact what our current plan is. Does make me want to wasteland them, but I'm not going to. See what flavour of deck they are. We just want to get the Phelia in, I think, here. And then flip the Overlord on the following turn. All of a sudden, that's a lot of power. So this looks like Painter or Mono Red Stompy. Okay. This is surprisingly good against Blood Moon because we can phase out their Blood Moon and give ourselves lands back. A Swamp. Okay, that's just really good here, isn't it? So we go overall the Balemurk here. Good attacks. Blink the Overlord. And now we're going to have the biggest game in town. Shoot. So what our plan was, if we didn't draw the Black Source, was probably to phase out the Blood Moon, wasteland them, and maybe try and leverage this mana off of like another land if we just drew like a White Source or whatever. I guess we'd have the black here. Broadside Bombardiers. No, thank you. We are very, very far ahead in this game. Let's phase out this Blood Moon. What do we have here? Witch Enchanter, Solitude, Recruiter of the Guard. Let's take Solitude, is fine. It's the best thing we can have for if something goes really wrong. We can go Stoneforge Mystic. Say yes. Go and get Pre-War Formalwear. And I think I will wasteland my opponent. Just make their life more difficult. Alright, they've had enough of us. That felt decisive. Excellent stuff. What do we want for this matchup? Wrath of the Skies for like all their little bits isn't the worst here. Disruptor Flute can name the Broadside Bombardiers, which is another thing to consider. I would like the Path to Exile here. I think it's just these 3 cards. We just want a little bit of removal. Orcish Bowmasters is kind of weak here. It is a guy, and it does mess with the One Ring and with Fable the Mirror Breaker. So it's not without text. Lion Sash basically is without text, unless we just want to turn it into a big guy. So don't really want any of that. The Aether Vial is another insurance policy against Blood Moon. If we're worried about the One Ring, we can also play Gadok Teague. What are they going to have? The Red Confluence, Fiery Confluence. They can have that and the One Ring to shut down with Teague, which I think is enough to make me interested. Thoughtseize are okay, but not so much on the draw. Maybe we'll just smash these out for these things. Maybe we just take out 1 Pre-War Formalwear. Well, no, we don't need to do that, do we? We just have it because we also took the Lion Sash out. Alright, let's try it with this configuration. The Teague might be difficult to cast, but we do have the Aether Vials. Wrath of the Skies. A basic white source doesn't hurt, but getting 2 white might be difficult with this hand. This hand is pretty cold to Blood Moon, but I don't think our opponent should be relying on Blood Moon against our mostly white deck. Do I think a turn 2 White Orchid Phantom is good enough? I think I'm going to go for something a bit stronger. Yikes. Put back the Backstreets and a fetch land, I guess. Well, actually, no, we'll put back a wasteland here. Just fetch our colours. We at least have a way to get through a Blood Moon, if that is what happens. Volcanic Fissure tapped. Okay. Our white source is our most important source. So we'll play out this Flooded Strand and get a white source with it. Deploy the Aether Vial. We can start cranking this up, and then the Skyclave can jump in and blow up whatever we need it to. And then a little bit later, the Solitude can do its thing, and then we just get the Yorion, and then we're having a great time. If they just play something like a Chalice here, that'd be fine. Karakas. Fable the Mirror Breaker. I don't know if they're actually playing white or if this is just like a colourless land in their deck. Maybe our opponent is on Boros Initiative. Marsh Flats, not the greatest for us. If they don't play a Blood Moon, we can go and get Surveil Land though. Next turn we can Solitude away the Fable. They're going to get a loot first. We also have the option of putting Yorion in hand next turn to enable the Solitude, potentially. I don't really want to waste my Yorion on a Solitude in that fashion. Sometimes we have to, but we're just getting attacked by the Shaman. That's okay. 2 damage. If we don't see a Blood Moon effect, we can go and get a Shadowy Backstreets. We can try and set up something. So they got a lot of mana and they're not using it, so that's interesting. The Backstreets, we don't want a Karakas. Like, eventually a Karakas would be nice, but that's not really what this game is about right now. Our opponent's doing things we're not. Overwhelming Surge. What is this card? Destroy target non-creature artifact. Or what's the other option? 3 damage target creature. Okay, so it's worse than a Braid? Why are we running this? Oh, choose one or both. I see, I see. That's why we're running it. Makes sense. Do I want my second white or do I want to keep black mana available? I think we want the second white in case we get Blood Mooned. Let's just get rid of this Fable before it can start copying stuff. I think they could have waited on this Overwhelming Surge. Because if we're not putting anything in, it's fine. Like, they could have got this and the Aether Vial off of it. And that just seems stronger. You've not seen people play this card before. It's a lot of sense if you're seeing a bunch of like patchwork stompy stuff. But the downside of it is that you can't just destroy a creature artifact that's really big. So you can't kill big things like you can with a Braid. So I still think I prefer a Braid. 2 mana are also very different. Aha, a Fury. Yep. We kind of absolutely smashed our opponent apart in game 1, and now they're returning the favour. Let's do some maths here. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So next turn we kill this and block, and that fogs that attack. And then the turn after we can Yorion. Is that better than just Solituding this right now? That does leave us completely hellbent in terms of action. But gives us a lot more life to draw out of it. I think we are supposed to just Solitude this. Like, they have the Karakas, so our Yorion isn't the most useful anyway. Yep, another Fable. We have another Backstreet, so we can at least dig for something. We did board in the Wrath of the Skies, which could be pretty blowout here. Wasteland, that's not it. Come on, Wrath of the Skies. One time. Not Wrath of the Skies. We don't have a third spell land, right? No. So we just want to get basic Swamp probably off of this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have to path to exile this illusion token to not die. That feels horrible. I guess we could path one of the goblins, but mana isn't really our opponent's issue here. They do still have Blood Moons in. That's good to know. I don't know if we want to crack this Prismatic Vista. If we don't have to. 1 life could be relevant if we can get rid of one of these guys, for example. So I'm not just going to crack it end of turn willy-nilly. If our opponent plays a Blood Moon, do we crack it? I don't think we do. The One Ring. I don't think we're beating that one. There's so many draws in our opponent's deck that just kill us. Like Pyrogoyphs and Broadside Bombardiers. It's like a whole bunch of things that are just going to end our day. Unlicensed test. A Stoneforge Mystic. Well, that's a very good draw, isn't it? So we go Stoneforge here. Well, actually, how good a draw is it? Because they have an unlicensed test, actually. I was thinking, oh yeah, we can just go and get this Pre-War Formalwear. But if we play this, our opponent just removes our guys. So we can chump block here. But this is attacking next turn for lethal anyway. Alright, we need our opponent to miss it. That's the only way we win this game. Alright, that's going to be game. Do you want to do anything differently? I don't think so. The Thoughtseize look a lot better on the play than they did on the draw, but it's obviously not really a great card for us to draw early in the late game. It does give us a better start to the game, which maybe is the important thing. So how do we go about fitting these in if that's what we're doing? We could maybe trim a Formalwear and a Recruiter. I guess that's 2 of these. I'll get rid of any removal spells. Can't really get rid of Phelia. Maybe the White Orchid Phantom's kind of pretty medium. Alright, I can keep this one. Planes into Aether Vial is not a bad start. It's the classic Death and Taxes beginning. Just a tap land. Good news for us, that gives us a bit more time. Do we want a Stoneforge here, or do we want the Overlord? I think I want the Overlord. Aha, we found a Phelia. And that's why we did the Overlord thing. Next turn we can flash in Phelia and Vial in Stoneforge. All of a sudden our opponent's going to be a little bit behind, one would hope at least. 3 mana is just a Fable? Sure. We're doing similar power level stuff, so this game's pretty even right now. Prismatic Vista, I would like to get another white source, so we will be deploying this. And then we pass. This turn we get Phelia and Stoneforge. And then we can start Meteor Swording our opponent. And Phelia blinking the Meteor Sword. And that should mess our opponent up. We need this turn to not be super scary. I'm not going to trade my Phelia for this. I'm going to stomp our poor defenseless guy. Stomp is cool, not a card you see that often. Put Stoneforge. Just going to get Meteor Sword. I think we do want to take this up to 3. Okay, it didn't quite work as we wanted there, but that's fine. We don't have enough mana to do everything. If we want to get Phelia back, we don't get to Meteor Sword. We can't play both. There's 3 mana and 2 mana. So I guess we can just hold up at instant speed and do whichever ends up being the best for us. I would like to get the Phelia in, but if we have to Meteor Sword something, then so be it. I'm just going to take 2 here. I don't know if we need to Meteor Sword right now. Our opponent might not be playing out a permanent because they're worried about the Meteor Sword. 5 mana. Is this going to be a Fury? What is our plan for this Fury? I think we're putting in the Meteor Sword to kill the Fury. Okay, let's go and get a white source. Thin the deck slightly. And then we're going to go get Shadowy Backstreets here, which is going to hopefully find us something really nice. Wasteland, that's not the one. We're going to leave this on 3. That's usually the correct number. Solitude is pretty useful. I think we can just... I don't really want them being able to copy anything next turn, so we're just going to do this now and deal with their reflection of Kiki-Jiki. We could be ticking this up towards Yorion now. Maybe we're supposed to do that as soon as we draw the Karakas. The Meteor Sword we can equip next turn and have a 6 power lifelink guy. That's going to be very hard for our opponent to beat. It's basically just a Baragoid for that point. But they have that thing that deals 3 damage and blows up a non-creature artifact. They can just kill the Solitude. So next turn we can put Yorion into hand and Pre-War Formalwear. Do I want to trade here? I don't think so. If our opponent spends all their mana just to Shatskull smashing our Solitude, I don't care. Well, it's not all their mana really, is it? It's like 3 lands out of tap. But still, that's not too bad for us. Disruptor Flute. What do we name here? Aether Vial? It is the Aether Vial. But that doesn't impact the board here. They're going to play the Bone Crusher Giant? They are indeed. That seems good. We will tick up our Aether Vial towards Yorion mana because we can blink it out. Blink out the Disruptor Flute. We can also just draw a Witch Chanter. That'd be funny. We did not draw the Witch Chanter. So this turn, we are putting Yorion in our hand. And then we are getting Pre-War Formalwear into play. We're just going to bring back our Thalia, I believe. That seems the most powerful and synergistic thing we can do. And then if we survive this turn with a Thalia in play, I think we just win the game. That's very much our aim. We have a Overlord of the Balemurk as well. It's just a real guy. So it's going to be pretty hard for our opponent to push lethal through this. Broadside Bombardiers is a pretty messed up Magic the Gathering card though. They just play 2 of them, dome a bunch of our guys. Maybe they kill us this turn. Haven't done the maths, but it looks pretty solid. Well, actually, they can just sacrifice this and then sacrifice the Bombardiers. So we are dead to double Bombardiers. Maybe we're supposed to attack with a Solitude because of that, to guarantee 3 life. So we at least have a chance to block. We're still just going to die to that anyway. Because we can only block... We guess we block both these, then we take 2, and then we would take... No, we would take 4, and then we would take 10. So we'd be dead anyway. So there's not really a line that beats the Bombardiers reliably there. Maybe we could have equipped Meteor Sword instead of putting Yorion into hand and gain more life. Maybe that's actually a better play. And then we get to... We could have cracked in for 6, guaranteed 6 life. And then just not put the Yorion into hand, and we still have the same board we have now. Yeah, I think that was the correct play, actually, was to use the Meteor Sword. These little things that you pick up from playing Death and Taxes for a while that I certainly have not done. Ooh, this is good. They put 2 on the Solitude, 2 on the Thalia, I think. Oh, 2 on the Balemurk. Okay. And then they bounce the Thalia. Oh, yeah, they have Karakas. Yeah, that was probably my mistake, just playing that Karakas poorly like that. So you can block here and take 4. I think we really messed up the last turn. I forgot about the Karakas as well, because it's just such a non-stock thing in mono red that my brain was just like, whatever. Okay, so we're losing all of our permanents this turn, all of our creatures. And they're also going to play the backside of this, I would imagine, yeah. So now they're hellbent with a lot of power in play that we're going to struggle to actually beat. We will tick this up. Wrath of the Skies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wrath of the Skies, please. Not Wrath of the Skies. Swords to Plowshares doesn't hurt, though. That probably does something here. Right? No, it probably doesn't, right? So we plow this. They have 2 4-power guys. We play the Thalia, we die. How much mana do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We needed 8 mana to get through this turn. So we plow this, we play the Thalia, they bounce the Thalia with the Karakas and we die. Yeah, we punted last turn, I think. We're supposed to equip the Meteor Sword and bash in with the Solitude. GG's opponent, you played better and you deserve to win. Let's go to round 4. Alright, this seems like a fine enough hand. Surveil land on 1 perhaps, into Stoneforge on 2. Let's hope we don't get oops all spelled. Just an island and a ponder. Another signing of the Mirage Island. I think I will get a Surveil land here. Source of Plowshares. I don't know if this is going to be good or not, is the problem. I'll put it on top. We can always pitch it to a Solitude if we just need to remove one thing. For like a deck that's pretty light on creatures. This Stoneforge Mystic in. We'll keep this Savannah. It's our only green source, so we don't really want to play it out. Actually, no, we don't need a green source main deck, actually. We should have played that instead of the Karakas, thinking about it. Go and get a Pre-War Formalwear. Seems reasonable. Means removing this Stoneforge Mystic is kind of pointless. Or, well, it's actively bad for them. And if they counter the Recruiter, then we can get the Recruiter back with a Pre-War Formalwear. A Thoughtseize. Can't do anything about that. I don't know if our opponent's playing Doomsday, Blue-Black Tempo, maybe a Grixis deck or an Esper deck, or just like Blue-Black Reanimator, which is still like a little under 1% of the meta. It's somewhere between 0.5 and 1% of the meta. So people are still playing it. It's still fine, but it's not what it was, thankfully. They went with the Recruiter. I like that pick a lot. Actually, do I like that pick a lot? Because we're just going to be able to get it back anyway. Let's play stand. And then we can Recruiter back whatever we want because we have the Pre-War Formalwear, so we can go and get whatever works out for us. I don't think they should have taken the Recruiter, actually. Unless they have an answer for this Stoneforge. Are we just getting show and telled? Stock up. Okay. How are we going to beat Omnitel here? This is probably Blue-Black Omnitel, which is... There's different variants of Omnitel, but on the whole, it's pretty much the best deck in the format by the numbers at the moment. What are we going to Recruiter for? Orcish Bowmasters doesn't hurt. We could go and get the Witch Enchanter so that we can blow up their Omniscience. If they have a show and tell, we get to put our Witch Enchanter in, it blows up their Omniscience, and maybe that's enough. So we get to recruit here. I think we're going to get Witch Enchanter. Crack him for 4, and I want to play the Thalia. And then we can start blinking Recruiters and Pre-War Formalwares and Stoneforges and whatever we require. If we can blink the Stoneforge and getting a Meteor Sword, we can have Meteor Sword and Witch Enchanter to blow up an Omniscience. Or we can put them in the Meteor Sword blowing up one of their permanents every turn hole, which is pretty good. Because they don't really play to the board until they win, so we just crunch one of their lands every turn. If they ever miss a land drop, then they're probably dead. Getting Thoughtseize here. I guess they take the Witch Enchanter, and then we're in trouble. There it goes. And then we're just going to get Show and Tell on here. I'll put in this Recruiter of the Guard. I would like to go and get the other Witch Enchanter. And then they can play Emrakul. We can bounce it. And then they get to play it again, and then we die. Another Omniscience. That's not bad. They can't pass a turn, though, because we have lethal damage. There is an Emrakul. That's going to give them an extra turn here. We can remove this, but at what cost? All right, let's spam some more permanents. Let's get rid of this Emrakul once and for all. Force of Will. Oakley dokley. How many permanents can we lose? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Seem great, does it? We need to keep the Recruiter so we can Solitude this Emrakul. Bouncing the Emrakul is just not an option because of the Omniscience. This is not like a Show and Tell Emrakul situation. Okay, so we need to lose the Stoneforge. We need to keep Thalia and a Recruiter. So we can probably lose 1 Recruiter. Then we need to lose 4 more permanents. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't really have a choice. It just has to be everything but the Recruiter and the Thalia. Now it's entirely possible our opponent casts a bunch more spells and still wins the game anyway. But we've got a fighting chance if we can blow up this Emrakul. Fatal Push. Okay, that's going to do it. And we're going to scoop that one up. I guess we could have naturally drawn the Solitude. That's a possibility. But we didn't, so there we go. Okay, we need some Disruptor Flutes, please, and some Deafening Silence. These seem useful. Nothing else seems to matter that much here. The Gadok T doesn't actually stop very much because Stock Up gets around this, Show and Tell gets around this, Omniscience, they're not actually casting. So these 5 things. What do we not need? We're not going to need to Skyclave or plow anything, are we? Maybe we get rid of the plows and head of the Skyclaves. Just try something like that. I don't feel very good about this matchup. Wastelands is a way that we can attack our opponent. I would like a Thoughtseize, but I will take the Wastelands. It's not like the old days where you used to have like a bunch of Wastelands and Rishadan ports and just play off your Aether Vial and just stop your opponent from ever being able to cast stuff. Okay, we're getting a 2-for-1, including the Atraxa off of our opponent to get the Aether Vial out. That is an interesting choice. I wonder if the seeing of the Wasteland influenced that at all. They're going to get a basic here. They have a lot of basics in their deck. So the Wastelands aren't always going to be the most important thing. But it is one of the angles we attack, and we can't mulligan to a 4 of Thoughtseize. And Deafening Silence doesn't stop them from comboing, it just slows them down. So it's a fine piece to have over our removal spells. I think we're just going to play out this Arid Mesa with the intention of playing a Phelia Exuberant Shepherd. But if they just show and tell this turn, what are we supposed to do? I guess we put in the Recruiter of the Guard and hope for the best. A Tamiyo, yep. Bane of our existence, this little Tamiyo. Let's get ourselves a Scrubland here. You tend not to see daisies out of these decks because they don't want to push their mana back when they're trying to cast 3-drops and stuff. Recruiter of the Guard. I would like to wasteland my opponent this turn, to be honest. Let's go and put a Stoneforge Mystic into play, and we're going to try and Meteor Sword our opponent to death. We didn't really need the Lion Sash in our deck, but it is a creature that can attack, so it's better than the things we took out. They're going to block with their Tamiyo, just save it a couple of points of life. Makes sense. And then from next turn, we get to blow up 2 of our opponent's permanents. Also, if they get rid of our Stoneforge or whatever, we can still just show and tell in the Meteor Sword. Our opponent needs to Thoughtseize us this turn. If they play a non-basic land, next turn they're going to get Wastelanded and Meteor Sword twice. And I think that puts us in the driving seat. I think our opponent is going to Brainstorm this turn. I don't want them to follow up with a Thoughtseize. Let's Wasteland this Underground Sea. Fatal Push. Let's put in the Meteor Sword. Let's put up the island. They're going to daze their own Fatal Push here. No, they're just going to cycle their Lure and Revealed. Alright. We do get to blow up all of their lands and their creature. I wish all of my turns looked this good. Now we still have to fear Lotus Petal plus Ancient Tomb. This Meteor Sword is a big upgrade of the... There's like a black Assassin's Creed thing that destroyed creatures, but it had to like equip to do it. This is just a significant upgrade. We got you in the lock. Yeah! Okay, we brought it back to 1-1. Now we're on the draw. Things get a little bit harder. I think we just go in again. Okay, we can work with this one. We have a Wasteland. We have Disruptor Flute for show and tell, which is a big one. Deafening Silence stops us getting completely cleaned out straight away. Thoughtseize does give our opponent a lot of opportunity to work out which thing they actually care about. It's probably the Disruptor Flute they care about more than the Deafening Silence, but they might be able to fire another piece of discard next turn, so they might not have to care about the Disruptor Flute this turn. They are playing around a Wasteland here, but because they are a 2-colour deck with Soul Lands, the Wasteland is definitely going to find purchase at some stage this game. But if we're already dead by the time it finds purchase, then that sucks, but we need to play everything that can have some useful text in this match. Disruptor Flute is the one that goes. Okay, that tells us they don't have another Thoughtseize. That's what that says to me. I will deploy this Deafening Silence off a land they know about. This stops them from doing show and tell into other spells, unless that other spell is an Emrakul. So if they go show and tell Omniscience, cast Emrakul, then we're just dead anyway. But they have one Emrakul in their deck, and they normally have to use all their cantrips to find it. Just a Ponder, I can live with that one. We'll cast anything that makes sense here, which is the Overlord, because it's the only thing we can cast. They do have Daisies. This is not a creature that comes back with the Pre-War Formalwear, sadly. We want to save this for a Surveil Lands. We're going to use the Wasteland to cast our Recruiter. Consign to memory. Okay. We do not get to go and get our Witch Enchanter. An Orcish Bowmasters is decent enough, though. If our opponent casts anything... Do I need another Deafening Silence? Probably doesn't hurt to have a second Deafening Silence. If our opponent casts Spell, then we can Bowmasters knowing that it will resolve. If they're not casting Spell, what are they doing, I guess? Well, this is just going to resolve anyway. We don't need to do it in response because this isn't card draw. So we're going to play the Bowmasters, get a Surveil Land, untap, then we can think about wastelanding this. We don't need to wasteland it now. We can get the extra value off our Surveil Land. You quite often see people who are new to the format just firing off a wasteland as soon as they can. But we can tap this for mana this turn, get a Surveil, and then use it next turn without losing anything at all because our opponent still won't have a land. Let's ping. Let's crack this. Let's go and get the Shadowy Backstreet. We can mill something over that we can bring back as well. Karakas is one that sometimes is useful. If they put in exactly a Traxxer, I'm going to want this Karakas. I will keep this. I think that covers us from that base a little bit. We did have a different line last turn where we pinged our own Recruiter of the Guard with our Bowmasters so that we could get it back with the Pre-War Formalwear. Now we can Wasteland. I'll hold this Karakas. We can put it in off of the Show and Tell if we want to. If that's what our opponent has. It's just a stock up. Just 3 damages that we have available to us right now. I've seen so many cards. They must be getting there. And we still hold the Karakas. And we're probably going to put this Yorion into hand. I don't know if we missed that last time. I don't think we did. Maybe we did. Put Yorion in and blink these guys. That doesn't really help us out if they're putting something spooky in. I think Karakas is the thing we put in, but next time we can just play the Karakas. A Tamiyo. If they flip this Tamiyo, it completely changes the game. This is going to give us a ping. This is the last spell our opponent casts this turn, unless they find another creature they want to play. I'll ping our opponent for 1. This also gives us a 2-2, which means even if they flip the Tamiyo, we at least have something that can pressure it if that's the thing we want to do. We're going to bounce this Tamiyo and do surprising amounts of damage to our opponent this turn. Potentially. Do I need to keep this for Atraxa? No, because they're not going to be able to attack with the Atraxa. And we can wait till we untap and then bounce it out. So I think using this and bouncing a Tamiyo is going to be our play. There's a land. If they crack it, they go to a lower life total, which is relevant. We're dealing increments of 1 damage over here. Let's bounce this Tamiyo. Attack for 4, so our opponent's going to be dead next turn. Is it worth making Show and Tell cost more mana? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we make it cost 3 more, they won't be able to cast it. That does make a difference. Let's disrupt the flute then. Why did I tap the Karakas? Because we bounced the guy. Okay, yeah. Sorry, for a minute I just thought I tapped the Karakas to cast this, but that's not what happened. We tapped the Karakas to bounce the Tamiyo. It's been quite a long league, this one, as you can probably guess. Okay, they're going to 1. They can't crack this fetch land. They can't draw any additional cards. Alright, we managed to take down the match against a matchup that I thought was going to be pretty horrible. So that puts us at, what, 2-2 going to the final round. I definitely think one of the ones we lost, we could have played better. And one, like the mono red one, if we'd have equipped the Meteor Sword and done that attack, I think we might have won that one. Also, if the Doomsday matchup we lost to, things could have gone slightly differently for us. It was pretty close. Anyway, we're going to the final round looking for the 3-2 to finish. On the play for the final round, let's show our opponent our little Yorion and have an opening hand. Wow, this is kind of a weird one. Let's have a look at our mana base quickly. So we've got 31 lands. How many of them are white? Like almost all of them are white. There's only 1 card that isn't white in our deck. 1 land that isn't white in our deck, excluding the Wastelands. So if we're drawing lands, they're going to be white ones. We can play creatures off the vial anyway. I think I'm going to keep this one, weirdly. I just feel like this is a format where I'd like to be able to Thoughtseize my opponent on turn 1. It's certainly slower than it was before, but there are a lot of ways that things can go awry super early on. This gets us our only swamp, and we Thoughtseize. Hopefully we can get this Aether Vial down, and that will cover our bases on the white creatures until we draw a bit more mana. We're going to need to draw lands anyway in this deck. Okay, Tainted Indulgence, Force of Will, Ponder, Tamiyo. Both of their guys. So we can just take this Tainted Indulgence, and that's their only way of putting them into the graveyard. That seems pretty fun. Let's do that. Our opponent has 1 land as well, so we can Wasteland them and maybe Strand them. If they play the land into the Tamiyo here rather than the Ponder, they could be in a lot of trouble, so they might Ponder. Yeah. I think our opponent is correctly identifying that they need to play around Wasteland here. Now, are we going to Wasteland them? Probably, yeah. We can Wasteland them and then play an Aether Vial, which will get a 2-for-1 out of our opponent's hand. Probably bins off the Attract, so I would guess. Aether Vial, is this worth 2 cards to your opponent? I think it probably is. Bit of a use it or lose it situation. Force of Negation, pitching Tamiyo. So they have a Force of Will in hand that's more flexible, and that's why they're keeping it back, but it does give us information. Our opponent found a land. They didn't shuffle their Ponder, so I suspect that was a card they saw off of the Ponder. And another Ponder. We were going to need a colour-producing land from our deck anyway, so I don't regret getting the Swamp here. Even if it doesn't pan out, I think it was, by and large, the correct thing to do. Now, what if our opponent was a deck where we have to Thoughtseize and 1 or we lose the game, like Oops or Spells or something? Not find the land we were looking for, so could be in for a bit of a rubbish game. We'll see, though. we've got a card we can use in the Solitude, which will answer a big monster if they ever get one into play. I just milled over a card with under City Sewers. It wasn't a big monster, which is good news for us. Finally, a white source. I'm going to play the white spell that we can play, because if we get wastelanded, I would at least like to get this going. They pitched the Attractor and the Force. Sure. So we've had 2 2-for-1s so far. We had a 1-for-1, 2 2-for-1s, and then another 1-for-1 with our Wasteland. So we are up ahead on the trading game, but we do need to get something down. Brainstorm is pretty potent, obviously, but it's coming down before a Tamiyo is around, which is something I can at least be grateful for. Another land, so our Wastelanding plan didn't really slow our opponent down that much. An Aether Vial. Let's deploy it. Playing around days this time. A couple of turns time we can try a White Orchid Phantom. Our opponent's going to have basics, but they might be fetching them. So the White Orchid Phantom might be able to actually mess up their land if they're fetching basics, but they might not be. Yep, just more sewers action. They might even have 3 sewers in the deck. Okay, so doing the Brainstorm trick. This will put Archon of Cruelty into their graveyard. But you can immediately see how much fairer this deck is without Entomb. The fact that it's still playable kind of goes to show that if they did ban Entomb, if they didn't ban Entomb, it would have been an absolute disaster, and it would have still been the best deck in my opinion. An Atraxa, followed by a Reanimate. Okay, we want to remove this one. Let's try and plow this. So we're going to get a bunch more things here. Rolling Dragonstorm will allow them to bin over the Archon, although I don't know where they put the Archon with the Brainstorm, so there's an asterisk on whether or not they still have it. Not a lot of duplicates in here, so they've got a wide selection of things they're going to get. So they're going to get the Animate deck because it's any enchantment. They're going to get the Atraxa because it's any creature. Actually, no, there's another enchantment, isn't there? There's Roiling Dragonstorm, which allows them to take another blue card to go with a Force of Will, if that's what they want. But because they're not backing up a threat with it, and we have the Aether Vial, I don't think they want to do the Force of Will index into that heavily line. Underground Sea, Brazen Borrower, so no Atraxa. They play the Underground Sea. They also took a Thoughtseize, which they've just cast. So we got Brainstorm. Wasn't among there, it was Force of Will. So it's these ones. Okay, so we're going to get Thoughtseize here. We certainly have the ability to not die to a big monster. If we get our hooks in well enough, then the size of the monster they play doesn't really matter. We can usually just defeat it. It's more the extra ability, the extra cards you get off the ability of the Atraxa that's the sketchy thing. Okay, they took the Source Plowshares, we at least have to 2-for-1 ourselves. A Marsh Flats. We know they have Force of Will blue card. I think we're just going to sit back for a little bit and use our Surveil land this turn. We could have put the Yorion to hand, but I think getting the Surveil land is actually better for us. So not really about doing Yorion stuff just yet. Here is the Roiling Dragonstorm. If you're unfamiliar with this one, it's an enchantment. Let me just move this out of the way. When it enters, draw 2 cards and discard a card, and when a dragon you control enters, return the enchantment to its owner's hand. So this is another thing that triggers Tamiyo. So Tainted Indulgence and Roiling Dragonstorm both can flip your Tamiyo, which is kind of like the linchpin of the deck, really. So that is an Archon of Cruelty. This is a Reanimate. We're going to lose our hand anyway. We may as well get this Force of Will out, so if we draw a removal spell off the top, it helps. We get a 2-for-2 trade here. I'm going to pitch the Borrower, or they got another blue card to use. I think if their first reanimation thing was a Archon rather than the Atraxa, we might have been okay here. I think we're going to fall a little bit short. Blinking this guy out doesn't feel great either. Oh, and there's our little nemesis Tamiyo, just to be the icing on the cake. Shadowy Backstreet. We do not require another land. If we draw a Solitude, we can go and put the Yorion into our hand. So that still works here. But then we're going to be losing to the Tamiyo, which is a different problem. And Marsh Flats. This is a Surveil land. There's no point putting Yorion into hand because they'll just make us discard it with their Archon of Cruelty. We only put it into our hand when we're going to use it. We're going to take 9, 10 damage. We're going to be at 3, which is going to be lethal to a Brazen Borrower attack. This strikes me as all very, very bad. Pay Theft on the Vial, sure, and then they can attack and make us lose it. This means that if we do find the removal spell, we're not dead, unless they play a land here, because the land can give them the Brazen Borrower. I'm just drawing a card. This is going to flip the Tamiyo because they drew a card off of the Archon of Atraxa. Sorry, the Archon of Cruelty, not the Archon of Atraxa. That would be a pretty busted card, wouldn't it? They did have a land. I'm not sure I like this play because our only out is to kill this. They could have made it so that's not an out anymore. We don't know if they drew this off of the clue, though. That might be what happened. But I think I prefer just making sure that we die on the next turn. Alright, go gadget. Shadowy Backstreets. Meteor Sword. Not the one, unfortunately. That doesn't do it because we have to sacrifice it on attacks. So we do not win that one. Okay. So our opponent's deck has like a Duke in it where it just plays more fair creatures. And I think that's fine. We're not playing much to interact with the unfair plan, to be honest. I like these options are the things I want. That's 5 cards. What doesn't seem so hot here? They're a combo deck, so Thoughtseize is kind of where we want to be. But most good. White Orchid Phantom looks pretty medium here. We can trim those. Maybe we get rid of 1 Pre-War Formalwear. And that leaves us needing 1 more piece to come out. Honestly, I don't think this game is really about wastelanding our opponent. I'm going to take out 1 wasteland. Okay, this seems alright. We can disrupt their combo plan a little bit with the Thoughtseize and then use the Skyclave to beat any fair plan of Barragoyds and stuff they have. That seems reasonable. Obviously, we're going to be drawing more cards because that's how this game works. Maybe we can find like a really sweet 2-drop for turn 2. That'd be really nice. Get our Overlord or our Phelia in. I think our opponent has disconnected from the game, so we're going to hope to see if they come back soon. Unfortunately, our opponent never came back, so we end up winning the match, but by default. Bit of a anticlimactic finish, but here we are. So we finished technically 3-2. I definitely think we could have played better in the 2 rounds we lost, certainly in the mono-red matchup. Let's talk about this deck then. Honestly, I think Death and Taxes is probably looking alright these days. The format has slowed with the bans, so you can actually play something that looks a bit like this, and you're going to have a really good time into some of the other decks, like the tempo decks, where you're just going to be able to outvalue them as the game goes on. There are still a great deal of combo decks in the format, though, and some of those decks will just ignore what you're doing and smash you up. I think we were quite lucky to beat the Omnitail matchup. Generally speaking, I would not want to be on the D&T side in that one, but we managed to get there. So you do have tools and options to get there. Some of the combo matchups are definitely going to be problematic. What is interesting here is we have a Gadok Teague. We could also have a Collect Roof if that's something we're interested in. It does shut off your Aether Vial as soon as you put it in. But in a matchup where you're shooting for it, maybe it's worth it if you're splashing the green anyway. The other thing is I missed having Cauldron Complete. I think I would have rather had the Cauldron Complete over the second Pre-War Formalwear. Now, Pre-War Formalwear in your grindy matchups is really useful, but we're kind of good into grindy matchups anyway. That's what our deck does. Having the extra lever of being able to smash people with a Cauldron would have been nice. But other than that, I can't really fault much of this deck at all. The 1-odd Thalia definitely came up and was useful. I'm not sure whether we'd be tutoring for it very often, which means it's kind of one of these things where you draw and it's nice, but by the time you get to the point where you're Recruiter of the Guard for Thalia, maybe that's just too slow and they've already had enough mana that this doesn't matter. So not entirely sure on that one, but maybe you'll draw it as your 1-of in a matchup where it matters and it'll be really good. That's what happened to us at one point today. It was pretty good. We had it and it messed our opponent up a little bit. I feel like the deck probably needs a little bit more to help in the Omnitail matchup. That is sort of the premier combo deck at the moment in terms of the stats and how well it's doing. Doomsday is another one, and we don't really interact with either of those decks that much. Now, Doomsday, we can disrupt their mana base, and we can take a little look at their hand. But we don't have any of like the really big haymakers for that you would necessarily want. I suppose the Disruptor Flute is covering a lot of our bases. Anyway, the deck is pretty solid, just want a challenge. I would be very surprised if we didn't see Death and Taxes decks continue to, do okay. I don't think they're going to ever be overrepresented, but I think people will still be top 8 and challenger with them. The deck is quite hard and intricate to play with and requires a lot of metagame knowledge, as well as lots of reps with the best ways to navigate certain situations. And whilst I personally am not a fan of like Death and Taxes in terms of a deck I would like to pick up and play at tournaments, I'm really glad that some people do like it and there is a thing that exists in the format. I think the format is healthier when a deck like this is playable. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, join the Patreon, join the YouTube membership, it all helps. Alright, thank you so much and goodbye.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.